This is Woodford Reserve, and I know a lot of y'all love it. So let's pop this sucker open and see what we think. I had some folks over this weekend, and they really liked Woodford Reserve. They wanted some Woodford Reserve Old Fashions. So we've gotten pretty deep into this bottle, although I just bought it. So it's been a while since I've had normal Woodford Reserve. I drink a lot of Woodford Double Oaked, but I don't typically have a bottle of normal Woodford Reserve on the bar. So this will be interesting because it's been a while since I've tried it. Before we pop the cork, let's talk about what we're dealing with here. Woodford Reserve is made by Brown-Forman. Brown-Forman makes some other popular brands you're probably aware of, like Jack Daniel's, Old Forester, and Cooper's Craft. Woodford's come under a little fire lately because their advertising is claiming that there's over 200 distinct tasting notes in this bottle. Can you imagine 200 freaking tasting notes in one sip of whiskey? No, you can't, because it doesn't exist. Like, that's just begging for us to blend this up and do a tasting notes video, and we may do that here in the near future. Today, we're just gonna review it. But I read recently to where up to 25% of the tasting notes were actually people just misspelling caramel. Like, how does that even happen? That's 500 different spellings of the word caramel. How do you even spell caramel 500 different ways? None of this makes any sense whatsoever. We're not here to judge their marketing. It's obviously working. According to the alcohol delivery app Drizzly, this was actually their third most sold bottle in the second quarter of 2022. So you can't argue with the results. My name is TJ Gamble, and this is Brewzle. In this video, I'm gonna rate and review Woodford Reserve on 5 different criteria. We're gonna total those up, give it a Brewzle score, and then at the end of the video, we're gonna see how it compares against the other whiskeys we've reviewed. Woodford Reserve has a mash bill of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. So it should have a little bit of rye spice to it. It's triple distilled, and although the bottle has no age statement whatsoever, so no promises, this should be aged for 6 to 7 years. A 750 milliliter bottle like I have here should clock in at around $30. So in a world where every craft release in the entire world is $60 plus, this is a bargain. As far as availability, I literally don't know if I've ever been in a liquor store that didn't have one of these for sale. I mean, there's a reason it's the third most popular whiskey on Drizzly, and that's because you can buy it literally freaking anywhere. Now, this is a very distinct bottle from Woodford Reserve. Like, it's unmistakably Woodford. On the front, we have a batch number as well as a bottle number. It's hand selected by master distiller Chris Morris, and it clocks in at 90.4 proof. The neck label reads, "A truly unique proprietary batch bourbon of unparalleled quality." I'm a bright, sweet fruit bourbon fan, and this is definitely not that. This tends to be more vanilla, toffee forward for me, which is actually a real nice contrast to what I grew up on and what really got me into bourbon. Before we get into the review, it really helps me out if you would hit the like button, maybe subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to take this channel to the next level, and your support on Patreon and YouTube channel memberships really helps us do that. We also have a free Discord for anyone interested in talking about bourbon, including the new Brewzle private selection barrel picks that we're working on. And you can find links and more information about all of that in the description of this video. Let's get back to the review. First, aroma. Now, before I sniff this, we're gonna look at the actual distiller's notes. And so on the nose, they say it's heavy with rich dried fruit, hints of mint and oranges covered with a dusting of cocoa, faint vanilla, and tobacco spice. And I see where they're getting that, right? I probably would not have picked some of those up on my own, especially like maybe that kind of citrus note. What they're describing as tobacco spice, I would just pick up as a little oakiness and rye. And I'm not getting a ton of mint there. That's just kind of that citrus coming through for me. On the aroma, overall, it's really pleasant. This is a really nice smelling bourbon, but it's not blowing me away, so I'm gonna give it a 6. And the second thing is flavor. Woodford's tasting notes on this are rich, chewy, rounded and smooth with complex citrus, cinnamon, and cocoa. Toffee, caramel, chocolate, and spice notes abound. It's good marketing copy. I definitely get a lot more citrus and orange than I remember on this. The toffee comes through Pretty solid on the mid palate. I'm not picking up all of the things they get. And honestly, with 18% rye on the mash bill, I would have expected a little more rye spice out of it. But overall, it's a really pleasant bourbon. But again, not something that I just consider absolutely exceptional. So it gets a 6. Next, complexity. Now with complexity, what we're looking for is how does the bourbon evolve? What does it hit you with up front? What is it through the mid palate? And then what does it leave you with on the finish? And Woodford definitely evolves. I don't get as many clear-cut notes as I would have liked. So I think from a complexity perspective, I'm gonna say this is about average and give it a 5. And the next criteria is mouthfeel. That's really the viscosity, the thickness of the bourbon. Now, as I mentioned in all of these videos, this is one of those things that tends to skew toward higher proof whiskey, although we have had some 90 proofers with a pretty solid mouthfeel. And it coats the glass fairly well. It's not sticking like a, really, really high proof whiskey might. It coats the mouth pretty well, but I think the viscosity of this, the thickness, is a little bit below average. I'm gonna give it a 4. And the next criteria is finish. Woodford says for the finish, silky smooth, almost creamy at first with a long, warm, satisfying tail. I mean, they don't say anything that's not true. The finish is a little short for me. It leaves me with just a little bit of kind of a toffee oakiness, not a lot of burn, which I wouldn't expect from a 90 proof whiskey. Not something that just blows me away on the finish, not unpleasant. It gets a 5. And that gives Woodford Reserve a Brewzle score of 26. And that puts it here just below Blanton's, but well above Jim Beam's Devil's Cut. Now, so far, just about everything on this list is limited or hard to find. As we add more regular sippers, things you can get just about anywhere, which is our plan over the next couple of months, I really think this Woodford Reserve is gonna hold up pretty well. But you let me know your thoughts in the comments.